credit is due, I do not hesitate to bestow it. I may not be here right now speaking to you over these airwaves were it not for the intervention of the tourist, our city's most famous freelancer. Now, I know that many of you have your opinions about the tourist, as did I. Some consider him an avenging angel, setting this city on a righteous path. Others see him as a demon of doom, slithering from the shadows to claim souls for the Dark Lord himself. Whatever your thoughts may be, I can assure you that they are most likely exaggerated. The tourist may be enigmatic, but he is still a human being, just like the rest of us. But with one glance, I could tell in what manner the tourist was exceptional. The brutal art of survival. During the lengthy conversation that I had with the tourist before he alerted me to a host of unforeseen dangers, I was struck by the numerous battle scars on his face, each one clearly representing a close call. The marks that identify a true warrior. His hands were powerful and calloused, marred by countless scrapes with the dead. And yet they also seemed nimble enough to strike with precision in an instant. Now, I have a reputation among the fine folks of New Orleans to possess a fair amount of survivalist acumen myself. And in that toolbox, one quality that I pride myself on is my ability to size someone up in the first few seconds that I lay eyes on them. And let me tell you, New Orleans, the tourist is undoubtedly a formidable force of pure ruthlessness when it comes to the matters of life and death. Not someone to be trifled with. When credit is due, I do not hesitate to bestow it. I may not be here right now speaking to you over these airwaves were it not for the intervention of the tourist, our city's most famous freelancer. Now, I know that many of you have your opinions about the tourist, as did I. Some consider her an avenging angel, setting the city on a righteous path. Others see her as a demon of doom, slithering from the shadows to claim souls for the Dark Lord himself. Whatever your thoughts may be, I can assure you that they are most likely exaggerated. The tourist may be enigmatic, but she is still a human being, just like the rest of us. But with one glance, I could tell in what manner the tourist was exceptional. The brutal art of survival. During the lengthy conversation that I had with the tourist before she alerted me to a host of unforeseen dangers, I was struck by the numerous battle scars upon her face, each one clearly representing a close call. The marks that identify a true warrior. Her hands were powerful and calloused, marred by countless scrapes with the dead, and yet they also seemed nimble enough to strike with precision in an instant. Now, I have a reputation among the fine folks of New Orleans to possess a fair amount of survivalist acumen myself. And in that toolbox, one quality that I pride myself on is my ability to size someone up in the first few seconds that I lay eyes on them. And let me tell you, New Orleans, The tourist is undoubtedly a formidable force of pure ruthlessness when it comes to matters of life and death. Not someone to be trifled with. Where is she? Nobody seems to know. The rumors are wide and wild. I can barely keep track of them all. Let's begin with the most unlikely. Mama is a ghost. She has never existed. Mama is a fabrication created by those truly at the cruel heart of the Tower Collective, to serve as a symbol under which to unify their impressionable masses. Next, we have Mama is dead, followed closely by she is deathly ill. Then, of course, one of my personal favorites, Mama is afraid of her people. So she hides, knowing that the Tower's time as the dominant voice of NOLA is drawing to a close. Its collapse imminent once the blindly obedient finally realize there is so much more for them beyond the oppressive wall. Now, I must admit, I have never laid eyes on Mama myself. My time on their side of the wall was brief as a mayfly. The Tower's ways do not reward those who believe in the power of autonomous thought. But whatever you believe, there is an undeniable truth. The Tower is in decline. Their philosophy, their lack of vision, and their cruelty have ensured their own doom. Has Mama seen it already? The end? Surely someone of her acumen can right the ship, set the Tower back on a benevolent course. And yet it appears that Mama has abandoned her flock. Why has she chosen to withdraw when the Tower is so desperately in need of strong leadership? Isn't it obvious, New Orleans? Mama knows she's already lost. She knows that we, the reclaimed, have set hearts and minds aflame with new possibilities. She knows that she can no longer compete. She knows the time has come to let go. But there are those among her ranks, I'm told, who have taken it upon themselves to double down on the failures of the Tower, to cling to worldviews that no longer hold any relevance, despite the reticence of their formerly esteemed leader. Sounds to me like the inmates have taken over the asylum. Is that where you want to place your trust, New Orleans? With a so-called community that sees you as nothing more than an expendable cog in their ever-grinding machine? Wouldn't it be wiser to embrace a philosophy that embraces the humanity that seethes inside each and every one of you? Mama is done with you. Those loyal to her and her broken ideologies will find any excuse to dispose of you. Retake control of your own destiny, my friends. Find your way to the reclaimed. We believe in you. My dear New Orleans, I had the most wondrous dream. I stood outside the Tower barricade, alone, gazing up at the monolith to oppression as silent flames crawled greedily up its concrete sides and black smoke choked the sky. I approached the barricade and it crumbled into dust before me. And in the Tower yard, reclaimed warriors stood with torches in hand, proud and defiant. Their masks alive, dark, swirling oceans of endless power. Throughout the yard were statues of fearful human forms molded from ash. Upon closer inspection, I realized that the statues were our enemies. Defeated, left vulnerable, even to the slightest touch, a soft breeze, or a light rain, and in a blink, the flames and the statues were gone, and the sky a clear and cloudless blue. Lush gardens stretched for as far as the eye could see, and where the ashen forms of our enemies once cowered, glorious sculptures of reclaimed heroes carved from marble and bronze now stood. The tower itself, transformed from a gray and lifeless symbol of despair into a vibrant canvas full of life. Every inch of the exterior covered in technicolor art, a collaboration of hope and human spirit. I could hear music pouring from the windows, soulful sounds our ears have not enjoyed for ages. From up on the balconies, future generations, influenced by the reclaimed creed, waved down to me, their masks alive, colors beyond comprehension cascading from their joyful visages. Then I awoke from the dream, and clarity overtook me. The time of the reclaimed is nigh. But in order for our vision of reality to overthrow the limited scope currently dictating the direction of this city, we must steel ourselves for the conflict to come and be prepared to fight a most certainly bloody battle with a ferocity never before matched in the theater of war. We are outnumbered, yes. But we will never be overcome. We cannot be afraid to ignite our passions, even in the midst of the nightmare. No. It is precisely then, when the nightmare's claws are digging into the thin flesh of our fading hope, that we must defy the nightmare and live. Truly live. And make no mistake, mere survival is not living. Scrounging for crumbs like a timid field mouse, begging some simpleton who bumbled away into the role of heartless dictator for guidance? Not me. I choose to embrace everything that makes me human. I choose to carve my own way through this new world. I am not a lowly animal. I should not be acting like one. Humor me for a moment while I recount an old Bayou legend. Many of you listening will no doubt recall the campfire tale of Charlie Boy, who met his end at the hands of the Suquillon at the Bogachita Swamp. But a lesser-known Charlie Boy tale is what I will regale you with now. As a youth, Charlie Boy was not one to adhere to rules. In fact, you could say the young lad was a bit of a miscreant. Thieving, vandalizing, terrorizing. Mischief was in his blood, and mischief is what made the man. On a sweltering summer's eve, one of those Nola nights when the air was so thick and hot a dragonfly could barely get airborne, Charlie Boy set out from his home in the 17th Ward and skulked on over to the Garden District with revenge thumping in his chest. His family had been wronged by some rich folk landlord types who were scheming to get Charlie Boy and his family evicted for no good reason at all. Now, Charlie Boy knew there wasn't much he could do, being just a 12-year-old beanpole, but he was not about to sit idly by and let old money greed ruin his family without landing a counterpunch. So out of chicken wire, Charlie Boy molded a huge head and put an old Pulcinella mask on it, the nose stretching down to the chin. He painted the whole thing black as night. With the head on his shoulders, Charlie Boy stood a gangly 7 feet tall, a messenger from the underworld. When he found the mansion of his oppressors, midnight about to strike, He slipped over the backyard wall and scanned the opulent home for a bedroom window to tap upon and give the sleeper inside the fright of their life. Make 'em think death itself had come for 'em. Tap, tap, tap. But there was no need. The patriarch himself was lounging outside, 10 sazeracs deep in his nightly drunken stupor, half asleep and unaware. Charlie Boy knew this was his moment. He crept up and stood unnaturally tall behind this slob of a man, reached out and grabbed a spotty patch of thin hair atop his head and yanked. The man's head snapped back, eyes wide with terror as he stared up into the looming face of death. And his heart just stopped. In an instant, a 12-year-old boy was transformed into a man of power. A man who understood what a glorious weapon fear could be. A man who would never again allow anyone to tread upon him without consequence. In an instant, a legend was born. What are beasts? What flickers in the mind's eye when you hear the word? I would wager that most of you visualize the dead that now walk among us. Those vacant eyes, clouded over. Those devouring mouths, always slack. And the smell, yeah, that probably comes to mind too. Rot. Some of you may conjure up a beast of the field, a bull or a swine, wishing their finest cuts were upon your plate. Fewer still might consider the beasts of the wild, a black bear wading across a stream, a nasty swamp gator more than a century old, drifting through the bayou, searching, hungry for a critter with warm blood to sink her teeth into. The nature of the beast is not what I am asking you to contemplate. What I encourage you to mull over for the moment is what beasts all have in common. Big, small, fearsome or timid, the common thread between them all is the limit of their thoughts. Think about that. A beast is limited in thought. A beast has a one-track mind. A beast thinks only about its own survival. It doesn't care about anything else. So allow me to pose a question. Are we simply beasts? Are we so beaten down, so base, that the only pursuit we can conceive is survival? Are we no longer capable of dreaming, of creation? Have we so completely blinded ourselves to the great achievements of our glorious past that we are willing to let it all disintegrate into dust because we are afraid to die? The way I see it, the answer to every single one of these questions should be a resounding no. Human beings. Hunted. Their muscle carved off bone. Sliced into meager portions, then served to a starving populace. A sinister secret. All in service to a quota designed strictly to strike fear into already subservient hearts. All in service to a quota that accomplished nothing beyond the creation of a debilitating disease. The tick. The tick is what they called it. An apt name, given the condition of those burdened by it, many of whom we have taken into our fold. And how did Tower leadership decide to handle this tick crisis? To keep those afflicted from discovering why they were sick. And when that misguided strategy failed and the truth spread like lush Spanish moss, what did these heartless scoundrels do? Did they spare no effort and exhaust every resource to correct their wrong and treat those poor afflicted souls? No. No, they did not. What they chose to do instead was to exile those sick with the tick, condemning them to certain doom, even though their own policies planted the seed for the disease in the first place. And they call us barbaric. There are atrocities that will grip the psyche of a people with such ferocity that I dare say those subjected to them may never recover their sanity. This is one of those atrocities. Makes my insides churn with anger. But this is my commitment to you, New Orleans. I will not stand by idly and allow injustice to continue to flourish within this city. Those who sit atop the tarnished tower throne will be brought low by the reclaimed and punished for their transgressions.